Among history's most remarkable figures, Anne Boleyn was born in around 1501 at Blickling Hall in Norfolk. When Anne was a child, her family moved to Hever Castle in Kent, which became their main home. Anne's father, Sir Thomas Boleyn, was a well-educated man who could speak French fluently. He was very ambitious and was appointed by King Henry VII to be deputy warden for customs at Calais, making him a powerful courtier. Anne's great-grandfather, Sir Geoffrey Boleyn, had been the Lord Mayor of London in 1457 and had bought both Blickling Hall and Hever Castle. Anne's mother, Elizabeth Howard, was the daughter of the Earl of Surrey, who later became the second Duke of Norfolk. Elizabeth was a noblewoman who worked as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. The Howard family had strong connections to the royal family, partly because Anne's uncle, the third Duke of Norfolk, had married Anne of York, the daughter of King Edward IV. Anne was raised in an environment of learning, and she and her brother George were known for their intelligence. Anne's education included reading, writing, languages, music, and traditional feminine skills like needlework, singing, and dancing. Although there were rumors about her physical appearance, including claims she had a mole on her neck and an extra finger, her father still chose Anne to represent the family abroad. In 1513, Anne was sent to serve as a lady-in-waiting at the court of Margaret of Austria, regent of the Netherlands. There, Anne quickly gained a reputation for being intelligent and hardworking. Anne Boleyn's early education was important in shaping the woman she would become. Growing up in an influential family, Anne was taught by private tutors in subjects that were considered essential for young women of her status. Her lessons included reading, writing, languages, music, and the more traditionally feminine arts of needlework and dancing. Anne's education set her apart from many others of her time, especially in a society where women's education was often limited. Her father, Sir Thomas Boleyn, was ambitious for his children, especially Anne, and took great care in ensuring that she received a high-quality education. This was not only for her personal benefit, but also to help her succeed in the competitive world of the royal court. Anne's time in the Netherlands under Margaret of Austria provided her with further cultural and intellectual experiences. She became fluent in French, which would later serve her well in her roles at the courts of France and England. Anne's early education, paired with her family's connections, played a crucial role in her rise to power. It made her stand out at the royal courts, where she soon gained a reputation for her intelligence, grace, and wit. These qualities helped her earn the favor of powerful people, setting the stage for her future influence. In 1513, Anne Boleyn left England for the first time, embarking on a journey that would significantly shape her future. She was sent by her father to serve as a lady-in-waiting at the court of Margaret of Austria in Brussels, a prominent figure in Europe at the time. Margaret was the regent of the Netherlands, and her court was known for its sophistication and culture. Anne's time there was pivotal, as she was exposed to the arts, politics, and the customs of foreign courts. Anne's fluency in French, gained during her education, helped her quickly earn the respect of those at Margaret's court. Her intelligence and charm made a strong impression on Margaret, who praised Anne in letters to her father. This praise helped solidify Anne's standing and open doors for her future roles. While serving at Margaret's court, Anne also made her first mark in history through a letter she wrote in French to her father, which remains one of the earliest examples of Anne's personal voice in historical records. Her time in Brussels was important for her personal growth, as she gained confidence in navigating the complex and often treacherous world of European courts. By 1514, Anne had transitioned to a new role, this time in the service of Mary Tudor, the sister of King Henry VIII. When Mary married King Louis XII of France, Anne accompanied her to the French court, where she would remain for several years. During this time, Anne's experiences in the French court played a crucial role in shaping her future, as she learned more about the intricacies of royal life and political maneuvering. Anne Boleyn returned to England in 1522 after spending nearly 9 years in Europe. Her father, Sir Thomas Boleyn, had requested her presence back at the English court, and Anne quickly made a notable return. She joined the household of Queen Catherine of Aragon, the first wife of King Henry VIII, where she caught the attention of the English court. At court, Anne quickly became known for her elegance, grace, and sharp intelligence. She was considered a fashion icon, admired by many, and her presence caused a stir among those who saw her as a striking contrast to the more traditional women at court. Anne's charisma and charm did not go unnoticed by King Henry, who was beginning to feel dissatisfaction with his marriage to Queen Catherine, largely due to her inability to provide him with a male heir. In March 1522, Anne was chosen to participate in a masque at court, where several women dressed as princesses portrayed various virtues. Anne was assigned the role of Perseverance, symbolizing her strong character. By this time, her sister Mary had been the king's mistress for several years, but Anne, unlike her sister, was determined not to be just another mistress. She refused to be with the king unless it was under the condition of marriage, making her stand out from other women at court. Anne's rise at court, alongside her intelligence and beauty, set the stage for her eventual relationship with King Henry VIII. She had earned the attention of not just the king, but many others in the court, thanks to her distinctive personality and her ambition to secure a powerful marriage. Anne Boleyn's relationship with King Henry VIII began in the mid-1520s and would change the course of English history. By this time, Henry was increasingly frustrated with his marriage to Queen Catherine of Aragon, as Catherine had failed to give him a male heir. When Anne returned to court, she quickly captured Henry's attention, and he began to pursue her with great intensity. At first, Anne resisted Henry's advances. She was determined not to become just another of his mistresses. Instead, she insisted that she would only be with him if they were married, something Henry was initially unwilling to consider. Anne's refusal to become his mistress added to her allure, making her even more desirable in Henry's eyes. This tension between their desire and her refusal to yield became the foundation of their passionate and sometimes tumultuous relationship. Henry, who was known for his determination, became fixated on marrying Anne. His obsession with her was fueled by the idea of securing a male heir, and Anne, despite her early resistance, came to believe that marrying Henry might fulfill both her personal and political ambitions. Their courtship was long and public, with Henry showering Anne with gifts and displaying his affection for her at court. Anne, in turn, began to reciprocate his feelings, though it is unclear whether she ever fully trusted Henry. As the relationship progressed, Henry sought to annul his marriage to Catherine, which led to his break with the Roman Catholic Church. Anne's influence over Henry grew as her reformist views aligned with his desire to create a new church in England. This movement toward religious reform played a key role in their relationship, with Anne supporting Henry's efforts to secure his divorce from Catherine and marry her. Their relationship reached its peak in 1533, when Henry married Anne in a secret ceremony. Despite the secrecy, Anne became Queen of England and was crowned in a grand ceremony. However, the pressure of providing a male heir soon weighed heavily on their marriage. Anne Boleyn's time as Queen of England, though brief, had a lasting impact on both the royal court and English society. After marrying Henry VIII in January 1533, Anne was crowned Queen of England in a grand ceremony. Despite her high status, Anne was never a popular queen, largely due to the controversial nature of her marriage to Henry and her outspoken religious beliefs. Many people at the time still considered Henry's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, the rightful queen, and Anne's role in the divorce only fueled the resentment. As queen, Anne was a key supporter of the Protestant Reformation, which was beginning to take hold in Europe. Her influence over Henry, who was already in the process of separating from the Roman Catholic Church, was significant. Anne encouraged the spread of reformist ideas, particularly the notion that the English Church should be independent from Rome, She also supported the translation of the Bible into English so that it could be read by the common people, which was a radical move at the time. Anne's court was a place of intellectual and religious change. She promoted a more modern and progressive atmosphere at court, where discussions about religion and politics were encouraged. Anne's own religious views were closely aligned with the ideas of the Lutheran Reformation, and she surrounded herself with like-minded individuals, including Thomas Cranmer, who would later become the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Hugh Latimer, a reformist bishop. Anne's religious reforms were controversial, and they often put her at odds with those who remained loyal to Catholic traditions. Despite this, she continued to champion these ideas, using her position as queen to further the cause of religious change. However, Anne's time as queen was overshadowed by her failure to provide Henry with a male heir. This failure, combined with her unpopularity and the shifting political and religious landscape, set the stage for her eventual downfall. The marriage between Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII quickly began to show signs of strain, despite the excitement that accompanied their union. Anne's inability to produce a male heir, something Henry desperately wanted, was the primary source of tension in their relationship. After the birth of their daughter, Elizabeth, in September 1533, both Anne and Henry were initially disappointed. They had hoped for a son who would secure the Tudor dynasty, but Anne's failure to deliver a male heir put her position as queen in jeopardy. Elizabeth's birth was a significant event, as it ensured that Anne would be remembered in history as the mother of one of England's most famous monarchs. However, the disappointment surrounding the gender of the baby created a deep rift in Anne's marriage to Henry. Henry, whose obsession with producing a male heir had led him to divorce Catherine of Aragon, grew increasingly frustrated with Anne, especially as rumors began circulating that she might not be able to bear a son. The strain between Anne and Henry grew as Anne experienced 2 more pregnancies, both of which ended in miscarriages. These losses further compounded the pressure on Anne to provide a male heir and deepened the emotional distance between her and the king. Anne's failure to produce a son, combined with Henry's growing interest in other women, including his eventual mistress, Jane Seymour, led to the breakdown of their relationship. Despite the tension in their marriage, Anne remained a devoted mother to Elizabeth. She fought fiercely to secure her daughter's future and ensure that Elizabeth would inherit the throne one day. However, Anne's inability to give Henry the son he longed for ultimately contributed to her downfall. Anne Boleyn's downfall began in the spring of 1536, when her marriage to Henry VIII began to unravel. The pressure of failing to provide a male heir, combined with her increasingly strained relationship with the king, set the stage for her dramatic fall from grace. Henry, who had once been deeply in love with Anne, was now frustrated and infatuated with another woman, Jane Seymour, who he believed could give him the male heir he so desperately wanted. In the months leading up to Anne's arrest, rumors and political intrigue swirled at the English court. Anne's enemies, including Thomas Cromwell, sought to bring her down and end her influence over the king. Accusations of adultery, incest, and witchcraft were leveled against Anne, though there was little evidence to support these claims. Anne's brother, George Boleyn, and several members of her household were also accused of being involved in these alleged crimes. On May 2, 1536, Anne was arrested and taken to the Tower of London, where she was held in custody. The charges against her were both shocking and absurd. She was accused of having affairs with several men, including her brother, and of conspiring to kill the king in order to marry one of her lovers. Anne vehemently denied the charges and maintained her innocence throughout her imprisonment. Despite her protests, she was tried by a court of her peers, many of whom had been forced to go along with the king's wishes. Anne was found guilty on May 15th, and her execution was set for May 19th. Her downfall was a direct result of Henry's desire to marry Jane Seymour and secure a male heir, as well as the political forces at play in the court. Anne Boleyn's trial in May 1536 was a shocking and tragic event, as no Queen of England had ever been put on trial before. The charges against Anne were serious and fabricated, including accusations of adultery, incest with her brother, and plotting the murder of her husband, King Henry VIII. These claims were based on unreliable evidence, including forced confessions from her household members who were tortured to extract their testimonies. Anne's trial took place at the Tower of London, where she had been imprisoned since her arrest. During the trial, Anne did not have legal representation, and she was forced to defend herself. She spoke eloquently and clearly denied all charges. However, the outcome of the trial was never in doubt. The court, made up of nobles who were loyal to Henry, had already decided her fate. Anne was found guilty of treason, and the verdict was read out by her uncle, the Duke of Norfolk. In a twist of irony, he suggested that Anne be either burned or beheaded, with the latter punishment ultimately being chosen. On May 16th, the court convened again to discuss Anne's fate, and her marriage to Henry was officially annulled by Archbishop Thomas Cranmer. This annulment, which claimed that Anne had never been the lawful queen, further sealed her fate. She was condemned to death, and the king, now eager to marry Jane Seymour, had no hesitation in carrying out the execution. On May 19th, Anne was taken to the scaffold at the Tower of London. Despite the false charges against her, Anne faced her death with dignity. She gave a brief but moving speech, expressing her love for the king and asking for prayers. With one swift blow from the executioner's sword, Anne Boleyn's life was brought to an end. Anne Boleyn's legacy is one of complexity and lasting influence, both in England and beyond. Despite her tragic and untimely death, she is remembered as a key figure in the English Reformation. Anne's marriage to Henry VIII led directly to the establishment of the Church of England, as her refusal to be just another mistress, and her eventual marriage to Henry pushed him to break from the Catholic Church. This move forever altered the religious landscape of England and had ripple effects throughout Europe. Perhaps Anne's most significant legacy is her daughter, Elizabeth, who would go on to become one of England's greatest monarchs, ruling for 45 years and ushering in a golden age of English culture, exploration, and power. Anne's determination and ambition were passed on to Elizabeth, who, despite the challenges she faced, became a beloved and respected ruler. In the years following Anne's death, many people viewed her as a martyr, a victim of political intrigue, and the whims of a king who had grown tired of her. The downfall of Anne Boleyn is often seen as the result of her failure to provide a male heir, but in the eyes of history, her strength and her role in shaping England's future have overshadowed the tragic end of her life. What do you think about Anne Boleyn? Was she a saintly figure who inspired love and suffered because of it? Or was she an ambitious sinner who manipulated her way into the king's life for her own ends? Please let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more historical insights. Thank you very much for watching.